that really comes down to whether UPS will come to the table and whether they clock the strike threat as credible. And it seems like so far, strangely, they're not quite getting it.
Teddy Ostro is a freelance reporter. He is also host of The Upsurge, a podcast about the contract negotiations between the Teamsters and the United Parcel Service, UPS, but really about what's become a broader potential revival in the American labor movement. We're really excited to have him on. Teddy, welcome to the show. What we're going to talk to him about is we're obviously going to get the latest and greatest, and he was actually at the rally that Sean O'Brien and Shawn Fain both attended in New York to support the Teamsters' fight for a fair contract in particular. And they were joined by some lots of other really high-profile speakers. The Teamsters
Hey, Jacob. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you now, Teddy.
Awesome.
Hey, sorry to just interrupt you, but sorry about that. Thanks for having me, guys. Super excited to be here.
Absolutely. Yeah. Really excited. And I was just telling folks that you just came from the rally where the Labor Shawns came together, Shawn Fain from the UAW and Sean O'Brien from the Teamsters, as well as AOC, the UAW Region 9 Director, Brandon Mansilla, who I think was just on your show, if I remember right. News Guild President John Schlois, NYC Comptroller Brad Landler, and New York City Council member Tiffany Caban. Lots of really high-profile names there at that speech. So let's just start off with that. We're going to get into the '97 strike, but we want to get some of the latest and greatest. So what happened at the Union of the Labor Shawns this morning?
Oh man, it was super exciting. I gotta say, everybody had a great time. Just the energy in that room, it was packed, and there were speeches. Folks were just walking around talking to members. Sean O'Brien gave a great speech, of course, as he often does, and just rallying the troops, rallying the ranks. We also heard from Vinnie Perrone, the president of Local 804. We heard from AOC. And then we didn't hear a speech from Shawn Fain, the president of the UAW. I went up to him, and I went up to a number of people at the UAW. I went up to a number of different workers that we saw there, including Starbucks workers, and was like, hey, sort of a leading question. What are you doing here? Like, what's going on? And obviously the answer is solidarity. Everybody is believing that these different fights around the country that we're seeing, whether it's the 160,000 SAG workers who just walked out, the writers, the hotel workers, and various contracts that are funnily going to line up and expire this year. It's all the same fight. So it really, and Shawn Fain, I had met him before. He's a cool dude. Talks to you just like you're the worker, just like he is. So it was a really fun time. Lots of great energy. I'm sure clips will be coming out of it. I'm looking forward divulge more, but it was great.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to digging into those clips and maybe sharing some of them next week on the show. Was there anything new as far as negotiations? We're coming up on 2 weeks, almost a week and a half, almost 2 weeks from when UPS walked away from the negotiating table, refusing to move. So did President O'Brien have anything new on that front?
Nothing on negotiations. I would say that something new that I hadn't heard prior was pretty, I would say, explicit/implicit note that, we don't want the Biden administration to intervene as they did in the preemptively broken rail strike last year, as Bill Clinton was asked to do in 1997. And he said, regardless of what anyone tells us, that's not going to stop us, which I took as saying, and I think other people probably took as saying, look, like, they could tell us to go back to work. We're not gonna. We're our own union. We're in the private sector. This is our fight. This is the country's fight, the workers' fight, and we're going to do it. So that's what I say is new. Beyond that, this is a part of a larger tour that Sean O'Brien, Fred Zuckerman, some of the Teamsters leaders are doing around the country, visiting different UPS facilities. They were just in New Jersey. I was at a practice picket in my hometown of Brooklyn yesterday, where Sean O'Brien was walking around, giving handshakes, joining the practice picket line. So at the moment, nothing new on negotiations. It's still possible, of course, that they could come to a deal. And the question, of course, that I have right now is we're seeing some mixed messages about whether a TA by July 31st would actually halt the strike, or they need a ratified contract. I'd say the new is the going around the country and rallying all of the rank and file to be ready to make this a credible strike threat.
Jose in the chat, and I'm not sure where he got this, but he said that the Teamsters did quote, and you know who Jose, he was on your show, actually.
Yep, Jose. Jose.
Which just, just for everybody, if you have not listened to the Upsurge, I just got caught up. I've listened to all of the public episodes now. It's all very good, and there's a lot of good information about what's going on now, and also some of the history of some of the fights that are going on. So it's really great. Could not recommend it enough, the Upsurge podcast. But Jose said, if tentative agreement on a new contract is not reached by July 31, UPS will force 340,000 Teamsters nationwide to withhold our labor, blah, blah, blah. So it seems like the Teamsters it seems like if they get a TA, they wouldn't strike. So, but I don't know, that could change as well.
It's according to people I've talked to, I think it's much like the prospect of a TA in general. We have to see. Right. A lot of this stuff we have to see. For example, there was a deadline of June 30th, I believe, for last best and final. It became July 5th. But this is just how negotiations are. They are like fast moving, and they can slither around, and we'll see. Well, I think it's really in a wait and see kind of position right now.
I heard you mention on your show maybe with some trepidation, which I certainly echoed, about the moving of lines that had been drawn. How do you think that's being received by UPS, and how do you think the membership is receiving that?
Yeah, I mean, I think some people are kind of just like, this is what it is. Others are a little bit, it's making people feel nervous. That said, people who I've talked to have been negotiating a long time, including in the Teamsters. This is how negotiations often work. You have bargaining strategies, and that you say this is the line, that is the line, and I would say that it isn't ideal that workers aren't hearing everything that's going on. There's the idea of big, completely transparent, open bargaining. That isn't what's going on in the Teamsters, certainly far better than the past 25 years. Having 100 or so rank and file workers on the National Bargaining Committee, as well as throughout the supplements. And I think just that state of not complete transparency in general, whether it's not knowing what was proposed to here's the line, and we keep crossing it. Yeah, it's going to make people anxious. But I do think that there are a lot of people, a lot of folks who have trust in sort of what's going on. And yeah, you have to trust, or you can critique. And I think both are sort of valid points of view.
Yeah. Was there anything noteworthy from the speeches of the elected officials like AOC, Tiffany Caban?
We didn't hear from Tiffany Caban. We heard from AOC, of course. I think what I noted, of course, is just the expression of solidarity and the recognition by AOC and other people who made speeches, which were Vinnie Perone, Sean O'Brien, that this is a larger fight. the fight of Teamsters, or our fight for the labor movement more broadly. And I'm sure we can get in talking about like why that is the case. I mean, there's the obvious point of the scale of such a strike, but logistics workers, they move this country, and I think that like there are some people out there who question some politicians, certainly who voted through like the deal for the rail workers. But I think like this is the second time I've seen AOC come out for the Teamsters in New York. So yeah, I'm hoping that there's just solidarity all around from the politicians out there. And I think there's probably some skepticism out there as well in the members, probably even some of the leaders. But yeah, it was good to see.
Last question, I think, on some of the current events type stuff, and then we can talk about some of the history that I'm really excited about. But a reporter on your podcast, who I think you said used to write for the Chicago Tribune, said that he thinks whether or not there's a strike is really going to come down to basically the last 48, 72 hours, and that both sides are kind of there's a little bit of a game of chicken going on. Does that? How do you feel about that? Do you feel like we're really just not gonna be able to know if there's gonna be a strike until basically July 31st?
That really comes down to whether UPS will come to the table and whether they clock the strike threat as credible. And it seems like so far, strangely, based on the people I have talked to, that they are not quite getting it. So, and of course, it depends on whether or not if a TA is reached, that will halt the strike. This is in just to pre-talk about the 1997 strike. July 31st, 1997. They wanted a little bit more time, and UPS Teamsters granted UPS that time. They gave another insulting offer, and come August 4th, that's when they went out on strike. So I think like Sean O'Brien has been pretty firm line in the sand about a number of different contracts, not just at UPS, but also the freight contracts that are being negotiated. T-Force just came to a TA as well. It used to be UPS freight. These lines in the sand, you could interpret in whatever way. It seems like a bargaining strategy to me. And yeah, I think the 11th hour analysis, well, whether it will come to that is certainly possible. It's certainly possible. That's oftentimes when TAs come to agreement, right?
And didn't you say that it seems like the customers of UPS aren't really clocking this strike threat as serious either? Like there would be some expectation, I would think, that if I was a customer of UPS, that I would want to kind of move some of my orders temporarily to a different logistics company, and that just is not happening.
Yeah, I mean, some of the big customers, like big shippers, throughout the pandemic also already diversified. So like if you look at UPS's, I think share just by volume, it actually has decreased over the past few years. Its revenue certainly has gone up. So that diversion in the long run has already began. That said, yeah, at this point, the ones who are with UPS don't seem to be moving over. FedEx was pretty clear months ago saying like, hey, if you're going to come with us, do it like now. We're not going to take you. And they also really just want people who have long-term contracts. Some of these contracts are long-term. So FedEx is kind of being like putting their hands up and be like, if you come with us or don't,
Interesting.
And that means that the damage that, or not the damage, just, the amount of leverage that the workers have is quite great right now.
You just saw a clip from the Valley Labor Report. We are live every Saturday morning from 9:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. And we pride ourselves on keeping all of our content free to everybody so that we can talk to as many working folks as possible. If you support the work that we're doing, you think that it's important, you think that it's good, then consider making a monthly contribution to the project, and you can do that on our website, tvlr.fm.